So today we're going to be talking about picking your lead sources. Okay, so it's pretty much anything you want to do inside of this business is gonna relate back to this one thing, and that one thing is that the only way to make money is to provide value to people. So that's going to apply to any sort of platform you do. It doesn't matter if you're going on Google. It doesn't matter if you're writing blogs. It doesn't matter, which is the same thing as Google. It doesn't matter if you're on Facebook. It does not matter if you are getting referrals from anywhere. No matter what happens, you have to provide the value first. If you're not providing value first, then no one's going to buy from you anyway. So it don't matter. What's up, Astalon? What's up, man? I haven't seen you in a minute. So let's talk about some different sources. We have search engines, we have social media, we have referrals, we have paid ads. They all have different strategies. They all have different benefits. Let's go ahead and deep dive into what each of those are and how they work. So search engines are there to help people find information they're looking for online using keywords or phrases. So basically people are looking for whatever it is you do. You are answering questions related to that or creating content that answers questions that are relating to whatever it is they're looking for. So if they're looking for wedding photographers, then we're answering questions about wedding photography. If they're looking for, if you own like a wood shop, they might be looking for whatever would relate to that. Social media, on the other hand, is used by people to publish their daily activities, comments, and photos, as well as republish information provided by others. So people on social media are typically looking for connection, interaction, and entertainment. So when you're dropping into social media, the tactic needs to change from, okay, now I'm answering your question, to, okay, now I'm just trying to start a conversation. I'm just trying to create something where you can connect to whatever it is that I want you to start talking about. So you're kind of just trying to jump onto trends. You're trying to find whatever that thing is that people kind of blow up about. Then referrals are basically people that find you via friends, clients, vendors, or word of mouth. People are going to connect with you based on the trust they have with the source. So, for example, if I go into a room, like an empty room, and just tell everyone I'm a great photographer, most people are going to go, yeah, that guy's probably not that great, because anyone who's telling you they're great is probably not that great. But if I come into that same room and someone that I know is now introducing me as a great photographer to the other people in that room, they're going to connect with that. They're going to go, okay, well, I trust John in this example. So if John says Roy's a great photographer, then Roy must be a great photographer. So it's really important to make sure that they trust the person you're relating to. So this can be your clients, it can be a vendor, it can be really just anyone that you've provided value to or have known long enough for them to tell other people that you provided value. And then paid ads. Paid ads are placed in front of people on various platforms. They are a disruptor. Okay, it's not that they don't work. Saying they're a disruptor doesn't work, but when you're using a paid ad, typically whatever it is that the person is doing, except for maybe in the case of Google ads, is not necessarily related to what your ad says. So like if I'm scrolling on Facebook and I see a boosted post or whatever, I wasn't looking for that information. You just kind of decided, hey, this is the information I want to give this person right now. It's also probably the most expensive of all these, unless you're really, really busy already, and then you're spending time creating the back-end work for social media or for search engines. Paid ads are always going to be more expensive. Doesn't mean they produce less value or whatever. They may add value somewhere else. And let's kind of talk about that for a minute, because whenever you're picking a paid ads, not paid ads. If you want to paid ads, that's fine. That's totally fine. But you guys totally threw me off with that comment. So whenever you're looking at a referral source, you need to make sure it's feeding into the life that you want to build. So if you want to spend all your time on social media, and you're fine with the idea that you have to continuously make content and jump on that treadmill and make sure that it's constantly producing something because it doesn't last as long, then that's totally fine. However, if you want something to last long term, which would be like referrals and search engine stuff, yeah, there might be a little more work in the front end, but on the back end, you're going to be able to have a better work-life balance. Paid ads, again, that also gives you a work-life balance. Yeah, you're losing money, that's the cost, but you're gaining clients without having to do nearly as much work. Although I will argue most of the time with paid ads, just keeping them running consistently and making sure that the ad is actually performing well is about the same amount of work as it would be just to create content that works for people. And so for me, I like a system that works like this. I like a long-term method. I like an ongoing method. So that'd be something like referrals from vendors. And I like a method, and I like paid ads to an extent. I don't love having like my foot in every single box I could put it in. So, for example, if you go on my Instagram right now, I haven't posted in 2 months. Now, when I do post, it's because I spent 2 hours to schedule it inside a Tailwind and just let that shit run for like 2 months. I don't care about Instagram. It's never really been a great lead source for me. I will say we have gotten leads from it, but it's just not the biggest thing. It doesn't add to the work-life balance that I want to have. And also, just as like a strategic point, it doesn't add to my clients that much, right? It kind of interrupts them because, again, they're not going on social media because they want to learn about my wedding photography. They're going on social media to hang out with their friends, see some other posts on there. That's just not what the intention is. And so it's never really been my favorite. It also requires the most amount of work, in my opinion, because nothing lasts that long. And so what I like to do is I like to have my long-term main source, which is Google, which is a search engine. So going back into the search engine conversation, here's some positives and negatives about search engines. Content, once it's ranked, so once it's like on page 1 of Google in this case, or page 1 of whatever, or it comes up directly underneath your results on Pinterest, like if you typed in, I don't know, white wedding dress or something like that, and you were a dress shop and the dress came right up underneath that, then that'd be ranked essentially. So once it's ranked, it's evergreen, which means that it's now showing up for results for that person as long as you maintain that ranking, which means checking in every once in a while, maybe adding content, updating it at least on a yearly basis. It's going to stay there and you're going to get in front of those clients. However, content does not need to be updated on a weekly or even a monthly basis. So you get a lot more free time with search engines. Answering relevant questions is the primary driver. So if I'm looking for best wedding venues in Orlando, right? If I write content that works well for that and I take the steps to find out what my competition is doing and I find out what I need to include in that article or whatever, I can get it to rank. Once it's ranking, it pretty much hangs there. I will update it periodically, maybe once a quarter, maybe once a year. It doesn't really matter. But I'll always be checking and making sure it's ranked. Once it's up there, I'm answering the questions that I want to be answering, and I'm the person that people are going to see first. It's easier to attain concrete data for search engines than it is for alternatives. So you can get information on what your competition is using via tools like SEMrush or Ahrefs or Ubersuggest. You can find different resources that give you ideas on what to post. There's just a lot of like ways to get concrete data. Let alone Google itself will give you search engine or Search Console, which will give you all your search data. It will give you analytics, which will see like, okay, you are ranking for this term, but then this is what's happening when you get to the page. So there's just a lot more concrete information that I can actually use to adjust. Social media, on the other hand, doesn't have nearly as much of that. Doesn't mean you shouldn't use it, just means it's not as easy to attain those things. And then your content is going to be served to people directly looking for what you do. Again, you're answering the question that your ideal client already has. You're getting in front of that source and saying, hey, you need to know this information. I have this information, and I've created this resource for you. Okay? Versus like on a social media feed, they're looking to see what their friend from college is doing, and then all of a sudden it's like, hey, you need a wedding photographer? I really want to give you a wedding photographer. You need photos? And it's just it's a little bit different of a strategy. Then you have the negatives of search engines. So search engines are very, very, very heavy in the front end, which means that when you're doing the research, when you're writing the content, when you're creating it, there is a lot of work that needs to be done. You need to make sure your website's structured right. You need to make sure you have correct H1s, H2s, and H3s. I don't really go past that in most cases. You need to make sure you have references, like reference sites to go to. You need to have parts of your website that you're going to be linking back to if you're writing a blog. There is a lot of work to do up front. And especially if you're talking about venues, like you got to write the content for the venue. Then you got to go all the way to the venue, take pictures of it, at least one outdoor picture at the very least, bring it back in, and then format it, post it, and then watch it rank and make changes as you need to if it's not ranking within like 30 days. So there is a lot more like upfront work. It can also be really, really competitive, which means you may be competing with a photographer who's been posted by the New York Times, Washington Post, like 15 or 16 other places that you don't have those links yet. And so you may have to go back and go get links, which also takes a bunch of time. However, once it's up and it's ranking, it is just there. That's why it's one of my favorite formats. Here are some examples of search engines. You've got Google, you got Bing, you got Yahoo. Those are the pretty obvious ones. I don't even know if Yahoo's still a thing, to be honest. I think it is. Then you have YouTube. YouTube is not a social media. It's a search engine. Okay, you can create content the same way you can for a blog, get it ranking, and once it's inside of YouTube and you've done your research, you've done your keywords, it's there. Pinterest, same thing. Pinterest is basically a search engine. It's not a social media site like a lot of people think. They are changing some of these, but it essentially is a Tyler, I swear to God, I'm gonna kill you. It essentially is. You guys are having issues with my audio still. Give me 1 second, because my assistant is deciding to mess with my slideshow while I'm talking to you guys, rather than just come in here and fix it. I can't really go any louder. Is this helping you guys? I'm talking literally as loud as I possibly can. I can yell, but that's as high as my mic's gonna go up. We doing okay with the audio now? Can you hear me now? Gotta get feedback. Don't ever do that again. All right, we're working on some audio issues. Stick the microphone. I'm not shoving a microphone in my throat. Okay, perfect. Back to where I was talking, or trying to talk anyway. Where were we even at? Okay, so Pinterest works the same way as Google does. Again, if you're gonna throw content into Pinterest, you need to make sure that it's got the right keywords. So those are hashtags on Pinterest. So you just look up. It's good if the mic is low, the mask level is even lower. Mics. I've played with all the slides. They're all at the top now. Hopefully this is still working better. Video is frozen. A little better. Talk louder. Got my volume all the way up. Good is good. Okay, perfect. All right, we fixed that. All right, so Pinterest is the same way. If you go to Pinterest.com right now, you type in maybe whatever term you're trying to get in front of. So that could be like a wedding venue, could be or like your area photographer. It could be engagement locations in your area. You can look that up, and it's going to actually auto-suggest what you should probably be typing as your key term for it. So it is, in fact, a search engine. I usually get a lot of fight back when I tell my coaching students that. Same thing with YouTube. Again, you can literally look up terms. You can find key terms that people are using to rank their videos. You can go in the background and see what videos are actually currently ranking for certain things. It works the exact same way. It's probably one of those platforms where people are not necessarily using it as best they could. Because in a search engine, a video is actually going to show up at the top, especially if you're on Google, especially if it's a direct match for a key term. So if you were to write something like I don't know, if you're gonna do a video on the wedding venues in your area, create the video, make sure it's keyworded out, and make sure the title is literally like wedding venues in blah, wherever you're at. You're most likely going to show up in the search results, and not only just show up in those results, you're going to be at the top. Keywords everywhere is a great tool. I love SEMrush. There's also a video tool that I'm blanking on. I'll drop it in the comments later on when I remember what it is. But there is a video tool for that as well. Okay, continuing on. Let's talk about social media. Okay, we're going to start with the negatives. Content is not evergreen, which means when you post something, when you have a really, really great video, it's probably only going to be in that feed for a little bit of time, right? It's only going to be viral for that little bit of time. It's not going to show up in someone else's feed over time. It's not going to just continuously be in that area. You're going to have to continuously make new content, look for new trends, get new videos running all the time. Whereas if you were to write like a blog post or you had a referral come in, if you were to make those your main strategy, you don't have to work that hard. Like I've posted blogs that are still getting me leads that I genuinely haven't touched in 6 months. It's just a wonderful way to work. you may have to make irrelevant content to be on trend. So yeah, if you find a trend that's really hard to relate back to your original business plan, but you have an idea for a video, you may have to make that content just so you can get on that trend and get people maybe possibly interested in going into your profile, then maybe going to your website, and then hopefully your website's well designed, and then hopefully they want to go all the way through your process. There's that. Or they might just go to your profile and message you, but it just depends on how much effort you put into either one. Interaction requires time, which means if you're going to be commenting on videos, if you're going to be talking to the people who are interacting with your posts, if you're going to go to other people's profiles, interact with what they posted, it takes a lot of time. You're just hanging out on that app all day. And I would argue that in most cases, you probably have better things to do. Algorithms are secret for the most part, okay? There is not like some sort of document out that explains exactly what's going to get you on trend or what's going to get you up in different areas. Now, there are people who are guessing at it, and it's constantly changing, but there's really no like, hey, direct tool that says this is exactly what's going on. You can go inside their own platforms, and they're still relatively vague. If you're following the whole Twitter thing with Elon Musk, this is part of the problem. He doesn't have concrete data from a social media site because they don't provide concrete data. They give you suggested data, edited data, kind of data that they want you to have, but they don't want to give you the full story. It's not. So in other words, I don't like social media basically. The other problem is that platforms change really, really often. Okay, I don't know if you guys, like a lot of you were around during the time, but MySpace used to be a huge, huge social media platform. Guess what? It's not around anymore. It's not available. You can't get on there. You can't find it. It's not a thing. I think it's like a music site now. It's gone. Same thing's probably going to happen to Facebook in a few years. The same thing's probably going to happen to Pinterest. Same thing's going to happen to, I think actually TikTok is probably taking over Instagram right now. I know it definitely is. I think it's upswing. It's definitely taken over, like, I think Snapchat for the most part. I know Snapchat's still a thing, but it's not nearly as popular as it was before TikTok. Vine. Vine was really popular. There's a lot of people who made a ton of money off Vine, and it's totally gone. So these platforms are not necessarily guaranteed to be around. So if you spend all your time working just on those, I'm not saying ignore them entirely, but I'm saying if you spend all your time just on those one platforms, all your work's gone. You don't own that. You own your website. You own all the content you write there. Tom is very lonely these days. Yeah, Justin Timberlake just bought MySpace. Yeah, so again, it's a completely different platform. I really want to know why Justin Timberlake even wanted MySpace. Now I'm going to have to Google that later. But notice, I'm going to Google it. I'm not going to go on Facebook to find out. Content creation tools for social media are available. So we're now around to the positives. So there are some tools that can help you. You can find out where the trending audio is. You can use scheduling tools so you can schedule way further in advance. Now, the trade-off with scheduling in advance is that you might write something a few months prior to actually posting it, and then it could be like a hot button topic that you accidentally commented on several months beforehand. It's happened to me a few times. It's not great. So you're running that risk. You're also maybe running the risk of being in the opposite place where trends are going. Like, you may have an idea of where they're going to be, but you may end up being somewhere completely in the wrong spot for them if you're scheduling that far out in advance. Skipped ahead on my own slide now. That's not to say that there isn't positives here. Everyone's on them. Every single person you know has a Facebook, an Instagram, or something. Like, they have one of them. There are very few members of society that don't have at least some sort of social media presence somewhere. And they can be extremely effective with consistency. I'm never saying that you can't just get leads from social media. Social media has a lot of benefits to it. There are a lot of ways you can get on trend. You might, like a Google blog post or something that you took time to write may not rank for like 6 months, but you may take like 30 minutes or whatever, create a quick video for like TikTok or whatever, and that can blow up, and you might get millions of views on that one little post. Again, you don't really know how that happened, and you're not really sure if you can redo it, if you can do it again, but it is something that you have to adjust. You have to kind of like acknowledge it's possible. Some examples of social media: we have Facebook, Instagram, TikTok, and Twitter. Okay, there are more than these, but these are just some examples, just in case you guys had no idea what social media was, in which case I'd have questions. Now, my website is hosted on TikTok. Thanks, Eric. I have so many questions as to how that works. That's not to say, again, that social media is all bad. It's good. There are some things that are good for it, and I don't think you should totally ignore it. Actually, if you're looking at getting published somewhere, sometimes if you don't have an active social media base, the publishers will they're not gonna trust you because you don't have anything posted. That's where they decided that's where your most recent content should be. Now here's the thing. You can do some of these like with each other. You don't have to do them like right off the bat. You don't have to like do one and it doesn't help the other. You can actually help yourself on both ends. So an example of that would be like if you're going on TikTok or whatever or Instagram and you see like a trending topic, like maybe it's related to weddings because that's what you're interested in, that's what you're following. You're seeing like different trends come out on there. You can actually use that to create content for Google to talk about what these trends are and what the benefits are of them, or which trends are trending currently for this season. Get yourself like ranking for those terms, which would get you leads over time. You can use those strategies. Referrals and Google actually work really well. You can go do a venue tour, meet all the venue coordinators. Now you're getting vendor referrals. Then you can go create content for that venue. You can use it for social media if you want to, in addition to writing blog posts. It's like a 3-to-1. Doing a venue tour is like one of my favorite ways to get stuff knocked out. Now you can also go do like styled shoots. I know Michael was in here and he does a lot of styled shoots with his wife, and they get to meet all kinds of new vendors, and those vendors now have a working relationship with them because they've already done work for them. So they may get some referrals from them. It's not a bad way to go. There's no bad route. But what I do think you should do is you should find a platform. I'm still laughing at the TikTok comment, Eric. That was great. You should find a methodology that works for you that's going to best benefit you. It's going to best benefit your work-life balance, right? And so works like this. You have what I would consider a long-term strategy, and then you have an internal treadmill, which is going to be like your social media. That's what I consider them. They're internal treadmills, basically, because you run on a treadmill. You don't actually get anywhere, but you have to consistently put in work. Once you stop, it stops working. In relation to like Google and stuff, you can work for like 6 months. But again, if you go to the gym and you don't work out for 6 months, you're not getting anywhere. And then you have kind of your ongoing stuff. So your ongoing stuff, it should always be referrals. Okay, it should always be referrals. Because this can come from clients, and honestly, if you're doing a good job and you're getting reviews from your clients, you're going to get referrals, okay? If you're working really well with vendors and you're not being an asshole and you're not like doing a bad job, vendors are going to refer you, especially if you make their day easier. If you can make someone's day easier, it's going to go. You can also ask and just hang out with some vendors and get referrals that way as well. So that should be your ongoing. And then you have your, that's like your everyday. You're kind of working on it a little bit, but you're not spending a ton of time on it. Then you have your long-term, which is, in my case, it's Google. I like writing blogs. I like writing things that relate to my clients. So that doesn't even mean like it has to be weddings. I can write about best places to watch fireworks at Magic Kingdom. I can write about my favorite breweries in the area. I can write like whatever relates back to my clients. I can write back, create content for them, and get them introduced to my brand. Maybe they don't buy from me right away, but if they're coming to my website, I can then take, I can give them like a free resource or something. Maybe I can give them a free guide to the best breweries in town, or like a secret drink list for speakeasies, and get them to download that, get their email from them, and then start marketing to them right off the bat. That's where it becomes really, really nice evergreen content. It's just continuously creating new leads. And then you have your eternal treadmill. Now, I'm going to say this. With the exception of Reels and TikTok, you really don't need to do all of these, okay? Because Reels and TikTok, you can actually do one and put it on the other platform, and it should work for the most part. You can kind of recycle content. So you're not really making it twice, but maybe you're making it in an app. I think there's like a bunch of them. But you're making an app on your phone. You upload it to TikTok, then you upload it to Reels, and you're kind of good to go from there. But the rest of them, like if you're going to be active on Facebook business pages, which I don't really recommend at this point, it's kind of dead, then that's what you need to be the expert at. So that's going to require a paid ad strategy. If you're going to be on Instagram all the time, you got to make sure you're posting consistently. Consistency is key. You got to go not just consistently in post. You have to go into stories, reels, all that. You got to be doing that all on a consistent basis in order to get that to function for you. If you can't, if you're not going to be consistent with it, it's almost pointless to do it because it's not going to perform the way it needs to. And so pick one of those platforms. Don't do all of them. Don't try and don't be the TikTok expert and the Reels expert and the Instagram expert and the Facebook expert. Like, don't do all of them at once. Facebook, by the way, if you are trying to use that as like a lead source, I actually would recommend like kind of doing what I'm doing with this group, right? I'm using this group this Facebook group to create leads for the coaching business. Hi, that's what we're here for, right? I use this to help educate students that are in the group. I also help educate people who are just looking for information on wedding photography coaching or social media posts. Like, all of this is done inside this group for a very intentional reason, and it's because I can, one, get email addresses when we're doing this. So if I want to send you guys like, hey, I'm going live this week, I can create an email list that allow that to happen. You can do the same thing for your couples. You can create weekly content and create discussion inside the group, let the discussion kind of flow, and basically get yourself out there in front of those brides if that's what you want to do. If you're going to use Facebook, that's the way to go. Again, you just have to kind of decide, where does my work-life balance like where do I want it to be? Do I want to work 60 hours a week and all of it be done chasing algorithms that I don't understand? Or do I want to go on Google and write some content, get some things structured out correctly, and have them run for me later on, so that I'm putting maybe 5 hours to 10 hours of work onto one piece of content that actually works for 6 months versus I got to make a reel every day, and yeah, okay, I can batch them out and it takes me maybe 3 hours to batch them out every week, but I have to do that every week or the entire thing kind of dies off. It's problematic. So you need, again, you never want to ignore your long-term strategy. You never want to ignore referrals, which can be, it can be things like you can go to networking events. You can go to, you can go to things that you're just interested in. Don't even have to be networking. Like, you could go join let's say you're into Taekwondo. Okay, you could go join a Taekwondo club and meet a whole ton of people who are going to then find out what you do. You're going to make friends, kind of build up your personal life. In addition to, okay, now we're kind of finding out, like, okay, well, Bob's an insurance agent. I might know somebody for Bob, and then Bob asked me what I do, so I'm going to tell Bob that I'm a wedding photographer, and then he's going to tell his friends. It just kind of tends to naturally happen that way. So don't think like you have to go to like a after dinner type of thing, like you have to, like an after dinner drinks thing with a bunch of business owners in the area. You don't have to, and a lot of times you'll go to those and they can be kind of rough. You'll run into people where you're meeting like real estate agents who have kind of like a Ponzi scheme, and they want you to invest in their real estate company, and there's like 20 of those guys in this one spot. So you may be better off in a lot of cases in finding your own niche stuff. Like, I pretty much go to wedding related events, and then I go to fun events. I don't go to too many just straight up business owner events unless I see some real value. I have been tricked a few times where I was going to like a seminar about something that I thought was interesting, and I ended up being there and being sold on or not being sold, but being sold to about like a MLM type thing. It happens. It's not necessarily, it's just a risk you take when you get into network marketing. But network marketing is probably the one that's going to give you the results the fastest, right? You're going to meet new people. They're going to be excited about you. They're going to run into a couple at some point, and they're going to say, "Oh man, you would actually be I just met this guy over at whatever meeting it was, and I think you might actually be a really good fit for them. I'm gonna send your information over that way." Roy's pyramid plans. I don't have any pyramid schemes currently, but if I did, Thaddeus, you'd be the first person I contact. But yeah, so those in-person networking events are going to get you the results typically the most fast. Even social media is going to be something that's going to take a little bit of time. And then you also have Google, which again takes some time. Some search engines will take a significant amount of time in most cases, unless you have a ton of backlinks and you can just post something and it automatically ranks, which is pretty rare for photographers. It does take a little bit of time. So that's why it's important to have these backup methodologies. You don't want to just leave yourself hanging. Okay. That said, that is pretty much everything I've kind of I've got here. I'd love to see if there's any comments that kind of pop up. We're going to do kind of like 10 minutes of Q&A. So if any of you guys have anything you're like, I'm really curious about, or if you didn't hear what I said in the beginning part of this, let's go ahead and answer those questions as well. Hopefully, by the way, the mic has gotten better. I don't know. Anybody? Bueller? While we're waiting for comments to kind of drop in, let's go ahead and I'll give you guys an idea of where my strategies lie typically, right? So the first part of my kind of like client lead strategy is Google. Okay, I'm writing content because it's fun. It is really, really fun for me to go explore new things, take pictures of them, and then tell people about them. It's fun for me to kind of think creatively as to how I can relate one of my interests into like what my clients might be interested in. And then the one we're working on right now is actually taking YouTube and using that search engine in addition to the way that we're using blogs. So if I'm writing all these blogs, I could probably read the blogs, or at the very least create content related to those blogs that would give me a video to put inside of my article, which would make people stay on the page longer, which is also good. But also, I would be able to rank for that video. Then we have Instagram. That's pretty much the only one that I am somewhat active on. Now, I hop on there to check messages, but otherwise we're posting on like I'll spend some time on Tailwind and schedule out 6 months of content. That's the only way I'm doing that. That's really all we're doing for social media. I don't even bother with stories. If you see a story, Tyler probably made it. I most likely didn't. And if you see a TikTok, Tyler definitely made it, and I definitely didn't. And then finally, it's networking. Networking is like my favorite thing to do. I go hang out with some cool creatives, or I go hang out with some wedding vendors, or I just go do something that's really fun for me. And kind of meet with them. Now, I also use podcasting as kind of like a method of referral network building, where I will jump on someone's podcast if they have a really big following, or they talk about something I'm interested in. Maybe it's like business, personal development, work-life balance stuff, and we basically I just hop on there and get into their network. That's just one way of doing it. All right, so Eslon says, man, tying lead gen preferences and work-life balance together in this topic was a great idea. I felt guilty for not having that desire to be IG famous. Turns out I could deep dive on Google or search engine ops site and still do very well. Is very optimistic. Yeah, chasing clout is never going to work that well. I'm just going to be honest. It doesn't. I did it for a long time. Like, I don't know if you guys know this, but a few years ago, I had like a 16 to 17,000 person following on Instagram, and I actually made less money doing that than what I do now. But significantly, like not even coaching aside, like the wedding photography business, when I was chasing, like shooting all these travel locations, and I was getting paid by hotels. I was getting paid to travel. I was working probably 10 times harder than I am now. And I genuinely don't think I learned very much other than don't do it. Because it was like a constant fight. Like I'd figure out something that worked really well to get more followers or to get more likes on something, and then it would just die off, and I had to figure out something else again. And it's a constant changing thing. Even Instagram itself has changed. Like back then, you could post a photo and that would get follows. Now I post a photo, people don't see shit. So I have to go and I have to create a story, and then I have to go create like a reel. And if the reel doesn't do really well, then I have to create like 10 other reels until I figure out what does work really well. And then I don't know what they're going to come out with next, but I'm going to have to figure that out too. I don't like it from that perspective because I can't figure out what works, and then when it does work, it works for like 72 hours. Like realistically speaking, you generally don't get that long with those things. Even if you get like one of the most viral pieces of content ever, people's attention spans are really small. So like by the time you finish that, by the time you're done, you get that past that 72-hour period, they're most likely on something else, unless it's something really, really crazy like the Amber Heard thing where people were talking about that for weeks because it was constantly creating new content. But I guarantee you in like a month or two from now, no one's going to be mentioning that. However, if you were to write something for your business specifically, if you were to write something on Google that answers a question that really serves your client, it's going to be there in 6 months. You're going to still be getting results in those 6 months. Okay, so Thaddeus says, so it's okay to write things about your couples that are interested even if it's not wedding or photo related. Yeah, so I actually just coached someone today, Nelia. We were working on her website, and one of her blogs gets, it's like a ton of traffic. And she, honestly, I'm going to say this, it's not like crazy well written. It's not like there's a bunch of information inside of it. All she did was like go on a walk with a friend and take pictures of coffee shops in her area, and then write like which coffee shops were the top 20 in the area. She doesn't even drink coffee, which is like the funniest part. Now, granted, right now she needs to add some CTAs and get some things working, but like you can write content that might relate back to your clients, and as long as you're putting correct CTAs and you have a proper structure for it, it can get you clients. So Thaddeus, for your example, you like video games. Like you're a big Twitch streamer, and I think for the most part you played a lot of video games. I don't know. But there may be some sort of cross path there with couples who play video games and like writing content for them. So doing like a video game review or like the top 10 video games that you can play with your partner. Like that might be something you could create relatively easily. get it to rank, and then have those couples actually find out like, oh wait, he's a photographer. We happen to be engaged. Those things do happen. CTAs. So a CTA is a call to action. So anything in your website that says like inquire now is technically a CTA. That's not a really good one. Eventually we're going to do a live here about CTAs and how to write them properly, and like better structures for them. But it's basically like, what's a good, well, I'll go to my website real quick. We'll pull up one of mine because I don't feel like creating one off the top of my head. So and by the way, it doesn't mean like the call to action doesn't necessarily mean like go fill out a contact form. Like that is a call to action, but that's not necessarily what we're talking about. Like I have a button on my homepage and it says learn more about the wedding experience. That's not a call to action to get them to like come talk to me directly. That I want you to go to this page and learn about the wedding experience and then come and contact me. And there's more CTAs on that page. A CTA is something that you want to try and fit into your pages like a couple of times. Let's say you're writing an 1,800 word blog or something like that. You want to try and make sure you're having at least 7 CTAs throughout that as just kind of a rough guesstimate, right? You want to break their attention enough times to where like, oh, hey, you know what? Now that I'm reading about this guy seems pretty knowledgeable. This girl seems pretty knowledgeable. Let me go ahead and just reach out and see, what the wedding photography would look like if you're writing about that, or if you're writing about, whatever it is. You do have to make sure you're catering those CTAs to the subject that you're actually reaching, like you're actually talking about. Yeah, Courtney, you should totally reach out to Nelia. She is killing it on a couple of things, but like for you, I think you're out in Montana, I want to say, and I know you take a lot of really epic, like if you guys have not seen Courtney's work, it's really amazing. If for you, you might want to do like the best national parks or parks nearby for family photos, or you could even answer like a basic question, like for moms who are looking for like where to take their kids for the afternoon. Like, hey, these are the best parks in the area. All you got to do is take your kids to the park, take pictures of them, and then use that as content for that blog post. And then you can cross-post those photos onto Instagram and tell them about your new blog that explains where all the best parks are. And you're kind of creating this like piece of useful content that also introduces them to your photographs, that also gets them introduced to your brand, which may get them to inquire with you. It's a really, really easy thing once you start thinking about it. It's like a lot of times if I have a question about something, I will write it down somewhere and see if I can't create content from it later on once I figure it out. So, for example, we're on Facebook Live today. I've done Zoom before, and we've done Riverside Audio before that. I've been kind of trying to take notes on these things and write about, hey, this is like the best software I found that worked correctly. By the way, it's not Riverside. It's also not Facebook Live either, and currently today it's not Zoom for some reason. I'm not sure yet, but I'm writing a lot of that content to get in front of people who are interested in that. Because you don't have to the other thing is you don't have to make money from like writing blog content by getting couples. You don't. I can write about the software I like and get an affiliate link from that company, and then let's say 10, 15 people sign up. I can get I can get affiliate money for that. I can write about like really cool things I found for groomsmen on Amazon and link those things out to them. Once that blog is getting traffic, I may get referral money from those links. I do have to like say that that's what I'm doing, but it's definitely like it's a multiple structure thing. So what I love about that strategy versus any of the other ones is that I can chase my interest and I can actually have a personal life with it versus me constantly being on display on social media. It's just not my favorite strategy. Now that doesn't mean it doesn't work. There are definitely some benefits, and there are some people who really, really work well in it. And I actually think like boudoir photographers do really, really well with Instagram because it's not competing with as much content as other platforms are. Okay, so Courtney says, I like all that too. I'm working on some things, but also getting more leads than I can handle. It's been fun. Hey, listen, if you can get more leads than you can handle, that's a win. That's a win in my book. I'm excited to hear that's a problem. It's funny because one of the things that I've always kind of like kept in the back of my mind that I heard, I think from Steve Harvey, believe it or not, is every stage in life that you're looking forward to getting to, right? Every single one of them has a different set of problems. It's not that you're ever like success is not the absence of problems, but the knowledge of how to fix them, and the new problems that are easier to deal with. So, for example, if you're not getting any leads right now and you're making no money, right? You have a cash flow problem. However, if you're making too much money and you're not sure how to pay your taxes, that's a whole new thing. That's a whole new problem in the same category. But now you have to problem solve that one. So it's just a continuously different set of problems, and there's problems that you want to have, and there's problems that you really don't want to have. By the way, if you've ever heard Steve Harvey talk about business, it's super interesting. He has a lot of stuff that really makes sense. There's what I just talked about, and then the other thing is if you knew the cost of what you wanted to do, like if you knew the cost of being successful up front, you probably wouldn't do it. So, for example, we'll take moving to Florida, because I've been gone for a week. I've been gone for like a week, and a lot of it had to do with my move. So moving to Florida was something I wanted to do for a long time, because I just genuinely wasn't happy at home, and also couldn't really focus. I don't know what it is about Indiana, but I still cannot focus in that state. So the move out here has cost me, my rent is like crazy high compared to what it was in Indiana, which is fine. That's expected. I had a blind dog that I had to leave with my parents, because when you move a blind dog, they don't do well with apartments or new settings. And so last week we found out that I just couldn't bring him down. As much as I wanted to, I really do. I had to leave him with my parents because it's a better life for him. He's got an acre of land or whatever. If you had told me a few months ago that moving to Orlando would cost all of those things, there's no way I'd do it. I would have said no. But the benefit of being here is that I've been able to focus more. I get to actually hang out with you guys on these lives, and income has increased significantly. But it all comes at a cost. There's a cost for everything. Simply your H1 suggestion at Abundance has changed everything. That's awesome. I'm really excited to see that. I'd love to see what your search console looks like, and also screenshot it and put it in the group. But it's been fun, guys. I don't think if anyone else has any other questions, you can go ahead and drop them real quick. I'll try and answer them later on, not in this live, because we're going to end this real quick. Otherwise, we're going to let my ADD just kind of run rampant, and we don't need that. So thanks for coming and hanging out with me. If you guys like this, please leave some comments. Invite your friends to the group. Please invite your friends to the group. I'm super appreciative of everyone that's in this group. And we're going to get back on schedule now that I'm all back down here with all the stuff I need. So looking forward to seeing your wins.